to Take in the Myth, your topical, skeptical discussion show. I'm Stephen Knight, and joining me with laser vision is Iram Ramzan. Iram, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Stephen. How are you?
Great, fantastic. In fact, so you've been augmented. You're part android now, I believe.
I am, yes. I've had laser eye surgery.
You got zapped. Got zapped
over a week ago. I did. Just went in there, sliced me right good and open, and can see through walls and shit. I'm RoboCop, basically.
You are.
Or Terminator.
You could find Sarah Connor in a crowd, no problem now.
I could, yeah.
Come with me if you want to live without trouble. So, what's the process like? Did it hurt? Tell me everything, because I'm interested. I'm very fortunate that my vision's fine, or at least I think it is. Sometimes it creeps up on you without knowing, but it's definitely something I'd consider doing if I needed it. So tell me what it's like. What do they do?
Well, basically, you go in and it's like the waiting around actually takes longer than the actual surgery itself. I was just sat there for 2 hours like, okay, I'm getting kind of bored now. I've already scrolled through Twitter. I've read the news.
I'm getting this. This is obviously a private service, isn't it? You're not getting this on the old NHS.
Yeah, your tax money paid for my eyes.
Oh, sorry, you did get it on the NHS?
No.
Oh, right, okay. I was just this is news to me.
No. No, this is private. It's a private clinic. There are several in the country that offer this. Went to the clinic and obviously had to sign loads of forms. They made sure I understood what was going on. You know, if you go blind, it ain't our fault, by the way. If you die, whatever, sign the forms, give your consent. And met my surgeon beforehand. Seemed like a lovely chap who's very reassuring. And then they took me into the theatre room. And honestly, it was like it being on the Enterprise or something. It was just, they put drops on into my eyes, like loads of them to numb my eyes, obviously, so I couldn't feel anything. And they're expecting a lot more, to be honest with you. I thought, I'm going to get a fancy gown to wear. I mean, I know hospital gowns are a bit naff, but I still wanted one just to feel like I was going through something. I just got this weird naff hairnet thing just to keep my hair out of my eyes.
Imagine if they put you in a gown where your backside's hanging out for no reason whatsoever. It's like, well, this is eye surgery. What's this for? It's just, just to make the experience more authentic.
Hang on a minute. Yeah, I want authenticity. I'm all about the authenticity. And so they put this weird suction thing over my eye, which kept it clamped open.
Oh, this is Clockwork Orange shit.
It was. I was like, that was actually the most uncomfortable part of it, because I could feel this pressure on my eye, and then I just had to keep looking at the red dot, and I could feel someone going over my eye with something, but I couldn't feel it. Almost felt like I was getting my eyelashes tinted or something, but I wasn't. And then after 15 minutes, like, right, you're done. And I thought,
that's it. Is that 15 minutes per eye or total? I mean, did you only get one eye done? That'd be funny.
No. Yeah, I'm blind in one eye. I'm Cyclops. No, I got both eyes done. And then the lady at the door was like, you can just take a minute to stand up. You might feel a little bit woozy, but I'm right here for you, and just take your time.
And you're like, what's that draft? Why have you put me in a gown when my backside's hanging out?
Backside hanging out. And it was like, when you're watching TV or a movie and they show us a dream sequence, it was kind of like that, because things were a little bit hazy, but I could see. And then I thought, wow, my eye feels great. Oh my God, this is just, what's all the fuss about? And then the nurse said, oh, that's just because the anesthetic is still in you. When it wears off, it will start to hurt. And then about 10-15 minutes later, my eyes were throbbing, and I had to get surgery on the sunniest day of the bloody year so far as well.
McSquinster.
I had to keep my shades on and had a scarf on. I felt like I was avoiding the paparazzi or something.
You was trying to get away from Hello magazine or something.
I was, yeah, exactly. That's what it felt like. And then, for about a week, it was just a case of continuing to put the drops in my eyes just to make them heal. my vision was. It was okay, but then it felt a little bit blurry at times because, that happens because of the dryness apparently. But, it does improve as the weeks go on. And at night when I'm driving, there's the car lights look a little bit funny. It's like this starburst effect around the lights.
You can see where you're going now when you're driving. That's a relief.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so some good news to start the podcast with. Zara Kay, we spoke about her on the last episode. She was in trouble in Tanzania. She's founder of Faithless Hijabi, ex-Muslim activist. We'd both met her, quite fond of her, spoke about her on the last podcast. It seems like that whole episode has now come to a very positive conclusion. So, according to the Council of Ex-Muslims of Britain, who have been invaluable in their pursuit of justice for her in Tanzania, put out a statement to say that Zara Kay will soon arrive in Australia, which was on the 4th of March, after weeks of facing threats and risks to her life in Tanzania. She finally flew out of Tanzania on 1st of March, having missed a 26th of February flight after being stopped by police at the airport. So she was detained on trumped-up charges at the end of December and held for 32 hours in a police station. There was tweets that were cited. There were issues with her citizenship, etc. It's genuinely thought of that these things were trumped up in order to punish her for her outspoken views on the government there and Islam. But I'm happy to say she's back in Australia now, so that's good news.
It is, considering how she first tweeted at the end of December. It was just after Christmas that she said, I'm having to go into the police station now. Wish me luck. Because somebody had reported her for blasphemy. And yeah, it's amazing. It's been over 2 months now. And now she's finally landed safely in Australia. Can just imagine how stressful a situation that would have been for somebody like her.
Yeah, constant anxiety. I'd imagine.
At least she's safe. At least now, no more holidays to Tanzania.
Yeah, strike that off the
list. Stick to Lanzarote.
Well, I know, and it sounds to most people that it's mental to get in trouble with the state for tweets. This just, and you'd think about this kind of thing being the pastime of governments such as Tanzanian governments or far other illiberal non-democracies. However, the UK has its own problem with quote-unquote communication laws and hate speech laws, and that brings me to my next story, which I'm sorry to do this to you, Iram, and I'm sorry to do this on the podcast, and I will offer a trigger warning to anyone who's not prepared, but I am going to cite the Daily Mail, I'm afraid. We can all just take a minute to absorb that fact.
Hey, they pay my wages, so I don't mind.
Yeah, so I'm going to the Daily Mail. The reason I'm going to the Daily Mail is because, unlike many other publications, the Daily Mail actually reprinted the offending article to give us an objective overview of the situation. And the only reason I'm going to the Daily Mail as well is because I don't have the snowflake sensibility with that publication that many seem to have on Twitter. But the headline is Celtic fan. It's important to get his his football loyalties there in the headline. First of all, anyway.
Hey, football's more divisive than religion.
Yeah, that's for sure. Times. So, Celtic fan 35 charged over offensive tweet about captain Tom Moore that read, "Burn old fella, burn," hours after NHS hero's death. So there's a little bit to unpack there. Tom Moore's become somewhat of a national icon in the UK, and rightly so. He's a war veteran. Very recently died. He was a war veteran. Yeah, very recently died. He's clocked up some years, that man. Good innings. I think he was in his 90s, possibly. He touched 100. I can't remember.
He was 100. He actually reached 100.
That's incredible. So what a life that man's had. Not only this incredibly well-decorated veteran and national icon, but he also, during lockdown, raised a ridiculous amount of money for the NHS I think he was walking around his garden, like a sponsored walk type deal. And it was a gesture at the time that sort of, it was like a positive story. It sort of united the country under this kind of positive manifestation of nationalism. We had something to rally around. There was this old man who'd seen the war, highly decorated, way into his 90s, and was still doing his bit during a less than ideal time for everyone. So it became this wonderful beacon of hope and positivity within the country. He was lauded as a national hero, rightly so, and then he passed away. Now, this gentleman who lives in Scotland, his life's ruined now, basically, because his picture's everywhere. I think he's had death threats. Now, he's called... What's his name?
It's called Joseph Kelly.
Yeah, so the story is Joseph Kelly from Glasgow allegedly tweeted on 3rd of February, "The only good Brit soldier is a deed one." He's even gone phonetic with the Scottishisms. He means dead, but he's put deed. "The only good Brit soldier is a dead one. Burn, old fella, burn." He was later charged under the Communication Act, which outlaws grossly offensive messages. So those that don't know, in the UK, if you send something that can be deemed to be grossly offensive, that can be tried as a crime under the Communications Act. So he's been given a trial date in June, so this will go to trial. He sent a tweet,
Oh my God.
celebrating the death of a national icon, and it's going to trial. Iram, thoughts first of all on the content of the tweet, and secondly, your thoughts on living in a country that takes these things to court.
Well, I mean, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm kind of with Lawrence Fox on this. You know, the actor who's always getting in trouble for saying stuff. He was questioning why police were using the legal system to prosecute idiots who tweet idiotic things. Is it really good use of our police force's time to be chasing idiots on Twitter? I mean, I'm surprised he said something like that, because what did Captain Tom Moore do to him? He just walked in his garden, for crying out loud. He just walked, he raised money, that's it. I mean, okay, he released a music single and his voice was awful, but apart from that, he's just seemed like a really nice guy. And he was from Keighley, okay? That's where my family grew up. So he's obviously going to be a nice guy if he's from Keighley. But honestly, what an absolute waste of police time to be chasing somebody for tweeting about somebody who's dead. I mean, you can't even defame the dead. Hello? What happened to that? You can't defame the dead. So what he said wasn't defamatory, but you know, to suggest that this was grossly offensive, yeah, maybe it would be offensive to his family for reading it, but why would his family really care about some moron on Twitter? I think we have to really point out, though, that this guy, we don't know if he actually denies sending the tweet or if he denies the message was offensive. We just know that he's got a court date in June, and that's it. But you know, I think the other point to be made is the Scottish Nationalist Party is continuing its efforts to introduce a new hate crime bill. Yeah. And that's apparently going to criminalise, quote unquote, stirring up hatred, whatever that means. I mean, Hamza Yousaf from the party, he's just been going on and on.
Is he the guy with the hook?
No, wrong Hamza.
Wrong Hamza.
So okay. Islamophobic, by the way. Yeah. But it's absolutely incredible that, you know, anybody would think of prosecuting somebody with it. I mean, he's just going to end up walking away free.
Do you think?
Or with a fine. Do you know what? Considering how batshit crazy everyone's gone, I don't even know now. I wouldn't be amazed if they just threw him into jail for 10 years or something, but it's just the point to be made is it's just a waste of fucking police time. I get it, there's a pandemic going on, so there probably aren't as many criminals to go around and chase because everyone's locked up inside anyway. But really, is there really nothing else for the police to do, that they have to be chasing idiots online? Yeah. Really?
I mean, if this was England, I'd have a little bit of faith that maybe it'd get thrown out, you know, and nothing had happened, or they'd get a warning, or it'd get logged as a hate incident, or whatever the fuck they do now. But with this being Scotland, and then you've got to refer yourself to the Mark Meakin, you know, aka Count Dankula case with the Nazi pug. That was the most absurd thing on paper, and they fined him they upheld the charge in a court of law. So all bets are off. This to me is kind of like a little example of everything I hate. So, I mean, first of all, I'm on the side of Sir Tom Moore in terms of what he's done, what he stands for. However, the moment you tell me that he's become so much of a national icon that he's above any sort of criticism or reproach, he's become a deity, essentially. He's become a prophet, he's become a religious figure, and I won't have it. He's become a national icon, therefore he's held up to some sort of standard that can't be transgressed, right? So there's that irks me slightly. I don't like things that can't be criticised. Second of all, how the fuck are people getting dragged into court for sending tweets in a liberal democracy? And the fact that they use words such as grossly offensive, how subjective is that description?
It really is.
I'll tell you what's grossly fucking offensive. Yeah. Arresting people for tweets. I think living a state that arrests people and tries them for tweets they've sent is far more offensive than anything you're able to fucking tweet. It made me look at that. Like, this is what it does to people. I do not share any of the views that chap tweeted, and he's a fucking Celtic fan for a start, right? So, but it made me want to get that exact tweet that he sent and just duplicate it in an act of solidarity. It made me want to reinforce his original horrible message, because I think the idea of being charged for it in a court is so much more worse than the original message. So that's what it does. It's the Streisand effect as well. How many people have seen this guy's tweet now who wouldn't have seen it before because the man's been charged?
Exactly. I bet he had like 5 followers, and then after that story was published, like how thousands of people know what he's tweeted now. And I bet the original tweet was not even seen by a handful of people. So this is what a load of Islamists do, don't they? You know, they see something they find offensive, and then they bring it to the attention of Muslims and say, oh my God, look at this, it's really offensive, you have to be offended now. Yeah. And then they are. Cue outrage.
I remember when they were trying to get some traction on the Danish cartoons controversy, and it wasn't having the effect that they wanted. So a few Islamist groups actually created some Mohammed cartoons of their own to say, look at these. And pretended they were drawn by the Danish cartoonist, which is incredible. Okay, so there's that. We'll follow that. We'll keep an eye on it. Like we say, court date Thursday, June 17th. What a joke that is. I don't know this guy. I don't particularly like him, but he shouldn't in no way, shape or form have to go to a court because of a tweet. So I know there's something that you really want to talk about, something you've been following quite closely, and I'm going to refer to the BBC on this one, just to cue you up. And I'll read the headline. BBC to reflect on controversial Woman's Hour interview with Muslim leader. So, Iram, first of all, would you mind explaining to our listeners what Woman's Hour is, and what is this whole Muslim leader controversy?
So, Woman's Hour is basically a turf station. No, I'm joking. It's like a magazine-style program on Radio 4. Comes on at 10 o'clock in the morning, and they discuss all sorts of issues that are deemed important to women. A lot of people are like, do we really need a Woman's Hour now? Because we're living in the 21st century. Surely we don't need a separate show for women. But anyway, so last month, the Muslim Council of Britain, an organisation we both absolutely love, we're paid
Stella.
members as well, card-carrying members, they elected a woman to lead the organisation for the first time in its history.
Haram.
Absolutely, it's the most haram thing I've ever heard.
Is that wise, though, knowing how emotional women get, putting them in charge of things, Iram? All the cake breaks. Do you know what I mean?
I do. And to be honest, in that case, to reflect Islamic values, they should have put 2 women in charge, you know, in case if one errs, the other can remind her to quote the Quran on this. Yeah. And a man to oversee them, of course, you know, because we can't be trusted to do things by ourselves. Right. So, Yeah, so the Muslim Council of Britain says it represents about 500 mosques. So it's the largest umbrella organisation. So you'd expect somebody who is leading that organisation to be able to answer certain questions. And considering how it's supposed to be historic that we finally got a female leader, you would rightly expect somebody interviewing Zara Mohammed, a young Scottish woman. Oh, she's from Scotland. I think that says it all, doesn't it? A young Scottish woman to be able to answer questions about gender equality in Islam. So Zara appeared on Woman's Hour against Emma Barnett, who takes no prisoners, let's face it. Maybe her style is a bit too forthright for a gentle magazine style show, but she asked her how many female imams there were. She asked her several times, and Zara, just obfuscated a lot, sort of dithered a lot, waffled, and said, I don't think it's within my remit to answer this. It's not really my job. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, but how many? How many? How many? How many times? It felt like a Paxo type grilling. But yeah, I mean, I'll tell you how many female imams there are. None.
Zilch.
None in your mosque. None in your mosque. Because, as we know, the teaching in mainstream Islam is that women cannot lead mixed prayers. There are various reasons for this. Most of them sexist. But yes, generally the ruling is that women, they can either lead women and children in prayer, and that's it. They cannot lead men, whereas men can obviously lead both men and women and pretty much everyone. I mean, she held her own. I'll give it to her. She didn't complain or anything, but of course, everything has to be an outrage now. So Labour MPs Diane Abbott and Naz Shah, Baroness Varsi, amongst some others, they claimed that Emma Barnett's hosting was strikingly hostile in asking her about the number of female imams, and they wrote a letter to the BBC. I don't know if it was to the BBC or the Guardian actually, but I think the Guardian published it, and they implied that her treatment towards Muhammad was uniquely harsh. Basically, that she wouldn't have been like that with anybody else. But actually, if you'd listened to Emma Barnett's show not long before that, she was questioning an ultra-Orthodox Jewish woman about underage marriages. She really didn't hold back from asking this woman about the number of about the tradition of about the tradition of girls getting married when they're very, very young, often when they're teenagers. The segment was about forced marriages, basically, and she was very, very tough on her. I didn't see that many people complaining about her, saying, "Oh, well, she was only asking her tough questions because she was being tough on Jews. She wouldn't have been like this with any other group." Well, we've just seen that actually she's consistently very tough across the board. But I just found the whole thing absolutely ridiculous. This is supposed to be a supposedly historic occasion. We finally got a woman leading a male-dominated organisation, and to ask her a question about how many female imams there are or about female leadership is supposedly offensive. And I saw Muslim women on Twitter who claiming that they were just so triggered by this, that it just brought back memories of being questioned by white women, and oh my god, I'm just so triggered. And you're like, really? What, you're triggered by this? You don't find it triggering that you go to a mosque and some of them don't have adequate provisions for women to pray because we're told that, oh, you're a woman, your place is in the home, so, get the fuck out. You're not triggered by the fact that women aren't really encouraged to lead their communities. And there were so many people just trying to play mental gymnastics on this issue that, but Islam isn't like Christianity. We don't have a hierarchy and we don't have a concept of priesthood, so it's not the same. Oh, well, how very clever of you. Well, first of all, there clearly is a hierarchy if you're saying that women can't lead men and women in prayer. There is a hierarchy there, no matter how many times you try and deny it. And to say that there's no priesthood in Islam, well, in Shia Islam, you do have something very similar, so it's not true. And also, like I said, we know that it's still a taboo for women to come out as imams to lead mixed prayers. I mean, there have been some initiatives in the past. So Amina Wadud, an American Muslim scholar, she got a lot of backlash a few years ago when she led men and women in prayer in America. And I remember a Muslim guy I know, he was just so outraged by this, that triggered him. He was just disgusted by it. He's saying, this is a sign of the end of times that we've got a woman leading prayer. So you think, well, okay, so clearly there is a hierarchy there. And the only one who was being really honest about it was Imam Ajmal Masroor, the renter imam who's always on TV because he likes the sound of his own voice. And he actually said it blatantly on Facebook. He said, we just don't believe in this. Full stop. Now, why can't you just say that? Why can't people just be honest and say, look, we don't believe this. We believe in our religion that women shouldn't lead prayers. I mean, once upon a time, Orthodox Muslims would have openly admitted to something like this and said, yeah, this is just what we believe, end of story. But now it's like they're trying to be progressive. It's like they're trying to please so many different people at once. They're trying to be progressive. Oh, look, we've got a woman leader. She just won't be able to, lead us in prayer.
Well, it's like they know the left-wing progressives are their natural allies. They know that they're the ones whose ears will prick up when they talk about Islamophobia or when they talk about being questioned by white women. When they throw in the right progressive buzzwords, they know centrist and right-wingers aren't going to pick up the baton there and defend their honour. They're sending out smoke signals to the left. And all I hear now when people deflect in this way is you can't question this. That's all it is. It is blasphemy law under a different guise. When people poke at these issues in Islamic countries, they're arrested or worse. Basically, it's imposed by force. Now, in places where criticism of Islam can't be opposed by force, you have to find other tools and means. And they do this, obviously, within the framework of hate speech laws, hate incidents, and or accusations of racism and Islamophobia. Now, I mean, we saw this that weekend on the big questions, and this might bring us on to Shamima Begum soon, assuming you haven't finished venting about...
I still got room to vent.
I know it's all there. We didn't get it through it in February, so it's been saved up. Iram's like a pressure cooker, firing lasers from her shiny new eyes.
I'm watching you, MCB. But you're right. It is about trying to ally with the progressives. So that's what they're trying to do. They've got their foot in one camp with the progressive camp by saying, oh, look, we're very you're anti-racist, you're anti-Islamophobia, so, we should stick together. And look, we've got a female leader, we are being progressive. But then on the other hand, they've got their congregation to think of, and if they do represent 500 mosques and organisations, then they've got those people to please, and they're going to be a lot more orthodox. They're going to be a bit more traditional and say, well, we don't believe that women should lead prayers. Women aren't imams. They shouldn't be doing this. This is wrong. This is un-Islamic. But then equally, you do see, some of these women on Twitter, these Muslim women who you get the sense that they want things to change, but then they're not willing to push the boundaries too much. Maybe they think that change should be evolutionary rather than revolutionary, and that change should be, it should be steady and slow, that we will come to a time where this won't really be a debate. We won't really be wondering if there should be female imams. But then I think it's encouraging to see all this participation, but I think, well, instead of having a go at Emma Barnett for doing her job, maybe you should be going to your local mosque and asking them how they're trying to get more women into their, through their doors, and how they're trying to represent more women. Because how can you just, how can you say you represent the Muslim community when you're blatantly leaving out 50% of the population? Nobody would stand for that in any other section of society. So why this? Why does this have to be a blind spot?
I mean, it's clear as well when you have the male leaders within certain communities in that faith that they're just holding on to the status quo. They know that all the power that religion affords them in the community and society would quickly be eroded if women were empowered within those structures. At the same time, it's always the death knell. It's always the death of religion. Whenever you give women some power, that's basically the end of your oppressive ideology. It just happens anywhere. So you can obviously there's a desperation to oppose and reject any attempt to modernize in that sense, because it's a concession of power, it's a concession of privilege, it's a concession of this proprietary mindset that they have of ownership of women. So I can understand the pushback.
I can. I mean, fair enough. No one wants to concede any power, but then you think if all these women want change, they would be the ones.
That's what I was going to say.
Trying to force down the doors.
And there seems very little of that as well. But I suppose there's a Stockholm syndrome element to it as well with some. So that's that. I mean, we did touch on Shamima Begum, Spaghetti Bagram.
Spaghetti Bolognese, yeah.
Yeah, and it might be worth bringing her up again because there has been some rather significant developments, and this is a massively emotive topic, and I have a view, other people have other views obviously, and I'm not even angry at other people for having a different view. I'm kind of like, oh well, yeah, I kind of see your point there and kind of appreciate and understand it. So I mean, the situation as it is, Shamima Begum, this is the quick dummy's guide, left Britain, born in Britain, left London, as it Bethnal Green in fact, at 15 years of age to travel to Syria to join ISIS. Didn't work out so great, the caliphate failed, and now she wants home, and our government said no. No.
Computer says no.
Computer says sorry, love. And in fact, could you just see that citizenship? Give you citizenship. I think that's how they put it. I've not read the official Home Office documents, but I imagine it went something like that. So she had her citizenship stripped. She's stranded in a Syrian camp somewhere, and it's divided opinion in the sense that some people think she's our product, our responsibility, should be brought to England to be tried in a British court. Others think no, she should rot over there given what she's culpable for, given she knew the risks going in. She joined a raping death cult in the full light of day of information regarding that particularly nasty outfit. Now, the development is that she's been denied the right to appeal from the UK. So on Friday, 5 Supreme Court justices unanimously turned down her request to be able to return to the UK to fight for her citizenship to be restored. That's from Sky News. Now, I think the problem here is, basically, if she returns to the UK to appeal, she's not leaving. That's basically her returning. It's very difficult to get people out the country, strangely, after they can leave and join whatever death cults they like. But if you want to get them back out of the country, it's very difficult, strangely. So where are you on this now? I mean, that's a very strong decision from the Supreme Court justices. It's split the country again. The typical, lefty progressives all want it back. I actually do side with that view on principle, but I'm very, 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 very sympathetic to the let her rot out there argument. Where are you today on this?
I think fuck Shamima Begum.
Yep.
I'd say stay wherever the fuck you are, whichever hellhole you're staying in now. I have no sympathy. And anybody who claims that, oh, she was 15, she didn't know what she was doing. I know we were all 15 once, Stephen. I don't know about you, but see, when I was 15, yes, I did some dumb shit. Like a lot of these people are claiming that, you know, who doesn't do stupid things when they're 15?
I got my eyebrow pierced and had blonde tips put in my hair.
That is pretty stupid.
That's worth revoking a citizenship for, surely.
I would personally put you on a plane and get you deported for that shit. I probably fancied some moron in my class, you know, as we all do. That was probably the dumbest shit I ever did, or maybe just get a horrendous haircut. Yeah, okay, we've all been there, done that. Should have thinned my eyebrows out a little bit more. I don't know, but that's the extent of my stupidity. I didn't go and join a terrorist organization, so anyone who's arguing that, you know, she didn't really know what she was doing. It's funny, isn't it, how the left usually argue that, we should lower the voting age to 16 because people know what they're doing by that age. But apparently if you go and join a terrorist group, you don't know what you're doing. And also, if again in this case, Shamima Begum can still appeal from elsewhere. If she leaves the camp and she's in a different country, she can still appeal. So, you know, it's not a cast iron guarantee that she'll never be able to have a citizenship again. Who knows what can happen in the future? But also, I think the narrative around her of being groomed and brainwashed, I think it's also really patronising, because nobody's saying this about the men who went off to fight there, or these boys that went off to fight there. No one's saying, oh, but, you know, they didn't know what they're doing. However, the narrative around her is that, oh, because she's a brown woman, she was a Muslim woman, or a girl in that instance, she has to be a victim. I mean, I get it. In some ways, you know, as a Muslim woman, you kind of are a victim to certain circumstances. You know, there are certain things you can't do when you're part of a community, places you can't go. You are restricted a lot. But you still have agency, you still have choice. And
it's worth pointing out, like, the age of criminal responsibility in England and Wales is 10 years old. So
so she's well above the
culpable.
age of criminal responsibility.
But
she's culpable. And also,
sorry, go on.
I think, like I said, we wouldn't be talking about her in passive terms if she'd been a male fighter and not a woman. And also, you know, don't forget, for a lot of these girls going off there, they went because they wanted to find husbands. They were attracted by the idea that they could marry a glorious fighter who was killing infidels. I mean, let's face it, they were horny teenagers and thought, well, this is probably the only halal way I'm going to get a shag. So let me marry an Islamic fighter, go join Syria, and I can live the Islamic dream. And somebody on the Big Questions on the weekend was saying, oh, it seems like a very progressive state to her. And I thought, really? What? We're progressive beheadings, you know, where you can behead an infidel 1 minute and then you could just be eating Nutella and toast the next. So progressive.
So just announce your pronouns before you lop someone's head off or something. Is that this progressive utopia? But I mean, the victimhood narrative that took hold on this girl, the idea of, the words trafficked and groomed were used as if she was tricked into it. And I'm trying to explain to people, you don't understand the mindset. It's not as if she got out there, saw the brutality, and then was instantly regretful of her decision. She saw and knew of the brutality before she went out there, actually firsthand witnessed it, and was okay with it while she was there. And there were some very credible reasons to believe she was part of certain cells that either kept slaves, you know, sold people rather into suicide vests, etc. And she's very unremorseful and questioned about it. She speaks about the beheadings and said she's fine with it because as far as she was concerned, it's Islamic. She's all in favour of the Manchester Arena bombing. This isn't a girl who got out there and was hoodwinked into this idea of this idyllic Islamic paradise with the wonderful, Mujahideen prince who was going to look after her and provide for her. No, she knew what was happening, got out there, was having a good time enjoying the life, and then the caliphate went to shit. And suddenly she wants to come home. So it's worth...
No more Nutella for Shamima.
I am happy for people to have a different view on this because I concede it is a very complex issue, both legally and ethically. But what I won't have is people lying about her as some bewildered young teen who had no idea what she was doing and was hoodwinked into joining a raping, murdering death cult. So that's where we are. So
you ain't no victim. You ain't Shamima, no victim. I'm sorry.
So you're on the side of let her rot. I'm begrudgingly on the side of bring her home and try her in this country. But
the problem is that we don't have robust laws to deal with her. You had the case of Tarina Shakil, who did something very similar, and I think she only got 6 years, and served 3. We don't have the laws to deal with these people. That's the problem. I think it's worth pointing out, though, that Trump's administration brought home nearly 30 American fighters and sentenced about 10 of them to prison. I think they had the capacity to deal with them. They had the laws in place. I could be wrong, but that's what America has done, because they said, well, they are our problem. They should face punishment. What punishment are these people going to face? So I can understand the logic in bringing her home because, she was born and brought up here. She is our problem in a way, but I'm not really losing sleep at night over spaghetti.
I think you've got to send
bolognese.
a strong message as well in the form of a deterrent, because if you let it be known that you can go out there, commit ridiculous acts of barbarity with very little objective evidence that can be collected afterwards, then just return home and enjoy all the privileges of UK society. That's a calculated risk many would take. If you're going out there, that's the end. That's the end of your citizenship in the UK. It might give people cause to think twice. I mean, it's possibly unlikely, but I just think that in these instances where people have left and joined one of the biggest terrorist organisations in living memory and want to come back to the country, we need to send a message that actually that's the end of the line, that we have a zero tolerance policy. We can't be seen to be being a soft touch when it comes to that kind of thing. I mean, I don't necessarily buy the security risk argument people are making, that she's a security risk when she comes back. I don't think so.
I think she's too thick to be a security risk, let's face it. If you watch that interview with her, you're like, seriously, you were a straight A student? Really? She's just so inarticulate and just looks really, really dopey. But there's some arguments made on the big question about her and other people, saying that, these people are still in camps, they could be recruited, they're a danger. And you think, well, they were already recruited.
They could be recruited again.
They could be recruited again. Okay. And then also the argument that she's only been stripped of her citizenship because she's brown and because she's a woman. Jack Letts, hello, he's stripped of his citizenship, and this is a white boy from a very middle class family whose own parents were prosecuted for funding terrorism.
We haven't got a national debate about Jack Letts, and you know why? I'm just going to say it, because he's a white male. And he's evil, and no one cares about white males.
White privilege really didn't work for him. In this case,
he's white. His citizenship and his white privilege was revoked at the same time. Good old Sajid.
But honestly, I mean, I can see why there's debate on this and what we should do with these people, because they are out there. Who knows what could happen if they're still left to linger? But to be honest, like I said, I'm really not losing any sleep over Shamima Begum being stuck in a camp. I have very little sympathy for her.
Me neither. I just hope that if one day I join a terrorist death cult, I'll have an endless stream of lefty progressives fighting my corner. It's just incredible to watch these people lean into it. Some of them, if somebody was unaware of Shamima Shamima Begum where she was and what she'd done beforehand, and they watched some of these debates, they'd assume rather that they were talking about a kidnap victim. The way some of the people are defending her, as if she bears no responsibility for her actions whatsoever. She was, practically like Hook a Duck was just lifted across the Syrian border into a camp, before she was there in Bethnal Green just enjoying the good life, eating fish and chips, watching telly.
Next minute, she's just got airlifted, force-fed Nutella.
Sewing somebody into a suicide vest. It's happened to the best of us, let's be honest.
Yeah. I mean, it hasn't happened to me yet, but, I do worry about that happening to me one day, just being force-fed Nutella and,
Not going to catch you with them laser eyes now, are they, though? That's it. No flies on you.
No, exactly. I'm invincible now, Stephen.
Well, that's Shamima Begum covered again. I imagine that name's going to come up on this podcast at some point. So, where are we at? We've got about 10 minutes or so. So, we can spin the wheel here. So, we've got Gina Carano's cancellation, which happened a couple of weeks ago now, Mandalorian star. We've got Coca-Cola's Be Less White training. And Stephen Greer at Bristol University. Maybe something a little less Britain-centric. So I think maybe...
Should we go for Coca-Cola?
Coca-Cola Be Less White. So this is from The Independent. And the headline is, Coca-Cola faces backlash over seminar asking staff to be less white. So Coca-Cola has come under fire from conservative critics, I'm not sure if that's true, who have accused the drinks brand of reverse racism after it used a training video that encouraged staff to try to be less white. The Independent goes on, the content of a training session was leaked by a Coca-Cola employee who sent pictures of slides asking white people to be less ignorant and less oppressive. And this was this training session was in association with Robin DiAngelo. She's the author of White Fragility. I've wrote a review about that on my blog. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. Yeah. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible book. But I think the problem here is they'll say things like, try to be less white. And when people challenge that and say, that's not fair, singling me out for my skin colour, they'll say, no, we're not talking about your skin colour. We're talking about the concept of whiteness. That's separate. There's a concept of whiteness. And it's a fucking lie, basically. It's another excuse to make it socially acceptable to trash the white person in corporate settings. Now, I'm going to say one thing here, then another thing very quickly afterwards. White people are the only people where it's currently socially acceptable to pile on because they are white. And it's a progressive viewpoint. Now, please do not confuse that with me saying I'm a victim of racism. I'm not saying I'm a victim. I'm not saying I'm oppressed. I am noticing a climate of a certain amount of rhetoric that is considered acceptable in progressive circles, and that is to have a go at the white person, to the point where it's happening in corporate seminars, it's happening in the media, it's happening in academia. It happened to me in a training session I was in with my employer. So this is difficult, and this is dangerous, and this is a downward step in terms of race relations and anti-racism, as far as I'm concerned. But how do you feel, like, as somebody who's a person of colour, quote unquote person of colour, a BAME, Iram? How do you feel when you look around and you see all this like anti-white rhetoric in every corner of progressive discourse?
I feel vindicated.
Do you feel like you won? Do you feel like achievement unlocked?
I feel like I'm winning in life. First, I get robotic laser vision, and now it's like I can exterminate white people with it.
Death to whitey.
Deaf to whites. Deaf to the honky tonks. Someone's so gonna take that clip and put it out of context and get me fired for something in the future. Yeah, it'll be you as revenge. I mean, oh my God, this is just so typical of so many of these companies now. It's called conscious capitalism, where people aren't just happy buying products. They have to buy into a product that has a really good, that has good ethics about it, that's doing all these woke progressive things. You're not just buying a sweater, you're not just buying a pair of trainers, you're buying a set of ideals, and you're just thinking, I go to a shop and think, just fucking give me my sweater, I don't give a shit what kind of progressive stuff you're dealing with. Really, I don't want to be lectured to when I'm going out shopping. But this is the future now. Everything has to have some sort of weird woke progressive agenda. Everything has to be so ethical now. And I can understand companies trying to do things to, maybe treat their employees better. I get that, having certain training to, whatever. But this is just absolutely bizarre. I mean, you're alienating white people. I mean, white people surely are probably going to be, your dominant customer base. Why do you want them all to be alienated and not buy your Coke bottles? Do you think they're all going to be replaced by BAME people of colour who are just going to start replacing all these white customers and buying your Coke bottles en masse because, oh wow, you want people to be less white? It's utterly ridiculous. And also it's very I think these discussions on race tend to be very, very narrow minded. It's just very, whites are bad, whites are evil, and brown people are good, and they're the ones who are constantly demoralized and they're victims of racism, which they can be. But you have to look at racism within these communities as well. There's lots of hatred and discrimination between different minorities. It's not just whites versus everybody else.
I'll be very specific and break down exactly what it means to be less white for you, because these training slides, courtesy of Robin, I'm a racist, so everyone is, DiAngelo. One of the slides that was leaked by a whistleblower says this at the top: to be less white is to, and then it lists all the things that's less white. Now I'll just read them out. Be less oppressive. Be less arrogant. Be less certain. Be less defensive. Be less ignorant. Be more humble. Listen. Believe. Break with apathy. Break with white solidarity. Now, she's a fucking lunatic, and the game is rigged beyond belief. So if I get annoyed that I'm told to be less white and that my training's been racialized to the detriment of my own skin color, which I find is highly divisive, and the antithesis of genuine anti-racism. If I bring them concerns to the fore, I'm then accused of having white fragility. So if I object to these kind of things, it's white fragility. That's how it's capitalized. In her book, White Fragility, she claims that civility and discussion are very white-centric concepts. So that if I make demands that discussions about race should be civil, that's me perpetuating white supremacy because I'm setting the standard. So basically, it doesn't matter. It makes no difference whatsoever if someone screams something at my face or quietly explains something to me. I must take it as valid both ways if I'm being accused of racism. So if I'm being accused of racism by someone shouting at me in the most horrendous, abusive manner, I'm to take that on board regardless. And if I say, you probably shouldn't be so abusive and shouty at me, that's just me upholding white supremacist norms of civility. Now, honestly, I nearly shit when I read that. You're essentially perpetuating the racist stereotype that black people are, the savage. They're incapable of civility and rational thought and explaining things in a calm manner. And my head nearly exploded when this sort of rich white woman. See, this is what she's making me do now. She's making me call her a rich white woman because of the way this is how she gets us. This is how she instills and engenders this racial division that we should have put to bed and mostly have already.
Is she rich?
She is now. You should see how much money she commands for speaking engagements, and she's in no shortage of work at the minute. People are lapping it up because of the Black Lives Matter movement. Like you say, what did you call it before? Conscious capitalism. All these companies are looking for a piece of that. They want to show people that they're doing their bit for the black community. So they're hiring Robin DiAngelo, who's the most authority, the most revered authority on this subject. Well, it's the author of White Fragility, isn't it? How much will she charge for a talk? A lot. And they'll pay it because they want to be able to say, look at us, we brought in Robin DiAngelo to educate us on our unconscious bias, etc. I'm going to fucking Google it, how much she earns. Oh, Jesus Christ. 20 grand.
Is that it?
For a 3-day training session.
Whoa, God, fucking hell, I'm in the wrong industry.
3 days work. She earns 20 grand for a 3-day speaking gig. And I don't know how many hours that amounts to. So, progressive identitarianism is quite lucrative.
I mean, you've got to laugh at that. She's talking about how much power white people have, and she has the power to charge 20 grand.
Laughing all the way to the bank.
Oh my God, there's something very Emperor's New Clothes about this, isn't there?
This isn't about helping black people and improving their material needs or getting to grips with some of the social aspects that causes certain issues within certain communities. This is about middle-class women making their white guilt go away. And earning them lots of dollar in the meantime. It's insane to me that people are holding her up as the answer to black inequality in the United States.
I mean, if you really want to assuage yourself of, your white privilege and do something for these poor black people, go volunteer in Africa or something, or go build a well.
Go and do something.
Can't actually do something. Can get a proper job. Wow, 20k.
So this White Fragility is it's filled with anecdotes, little tales of Robin DiAngelo's training sessions, and they're definitely not made up here. I'm like, they're in the books or they're true. She's not just made them up. There's no way she's just made them up to make her look like the anti-racist hero in every single situation. This really happened, honest. But one of the anecdotes, I was howling with laughter when I read it. She recalled a time when she was giving an anti-racist workshop, and the topic of an unarmed black man being shot came up. Some white woman was talking about it, and this white woman, as she was talking about it, was so upset by it and moved at the injustice of it, she started weeping with emotion. And Robin DiAngelo was not to be upstaged by a white woman crying. This was the Robin DiAngelo show. So what she did is she removed the woman from the training session, not out of any sort of empathy or care for her emotional state, but because she did not want the training session hijacked, and I quote, by white woman's tears. She saw this distressed, crying woman and said, not on my watch, get out. I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to make this all about you.
Up.
And this isn't all about you and your white woman's tears. This is all about me and my 20 grand paycheck. Thank you very much.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is, oh my God. What do you even say?
Stop paying these people. You stop paying these people. There is a lot of pro-equality training that can be done. I'm actually in favour of it. I think it's not a bad thing in the workplace to sort of, reiterate certain expectations when it comes to relations in the workplace in terms of race, gender, things like that, sure. But what you should be checking is, are you attacking one particular skin colour in your output? If you are, sorry, we're not having that. It's racist. I think we should start feeling a bit more brave in accusing people of racism when it's directed at white people. We need to jettison this stupid progressive myth that racism can only be racist if it has a certain amount of power and privilege attached to it. They're just rigging the game and redefining words so that they can foster in their own brand of racism.
I mean, these people are actually more obsessed with race than racists. I mean, they're the ones who, they always go on about how skin colour shouldn't hinder your chances in life. We can achieve anything we want, blah, blah, blah. But actually, they're the ones who want us to be defined by our skin colour.
Yeah.
And that's like the least interesting thing about me. I'm like a really nice toasty beige colour, sure. But, there are other things going on with me that my skin colour is probably the, least interesting thing.
Yeah. I came through the anti-racism of the 90s. Obviously, some very dark days in the 80s in the UK, but I came through a big concerted push of anti-racism. So I was probably one of the first generation who had Asians and black people in my class at primary school as a kid. Earlier generations wouldn't have, so it was normal for me to socialize and
bash their heads in.
Yeah, seek them out on my lunch break. But yeah, so it wasn't my racism couldn't be born out of ignorance because I had quote unquote black and brown friends. But the anti-racism at that time, the emphasis was skin color shouldn't divide us. It's not important. You shouldn't attribute any sort of agency or magical properties to it. That we're all human beings. We all bleed the same. All these cliches, which are true and useful for that time, and that's what pushed progress forward. That was Martin Luther King's dream, certainly, and we seem to have been heading to a fairly good place, and now we're kind of someone's hit the brakes, and there's a lot of people trying to find reverse in terms of race relations, where we've gone from race doesn't matter, you shouldn't judge people versus skin colour, it's not important, to actually it's the most important thing on the planet right now, and you should consider someone's skin colour in every aspect of social interaction and life, and that's just a dangerous precedent to be setting again.
Absolutely.
So, gonna see what lovely questions our audience of 5 or 6 people have sent in this week.
There's lots of questions about Meghan and Harry.
Oh, fuck
Meghan and Harry. I will say something very briefly about this. This is a couple who, claim they wanted privacy. They want the limelight, but then they're doing everything to court the limelight. And they revealed the sex of their baby on a television show. But apart from that, they're very, very private. Living in their fancy multi-million-dollar mansion.
They're going to deal with this in a very quiet, dignified way on the Oprah Winfrey Show.
By chatting shit on Oprah. Yeah, I'm sorry, but I have no sympathy for them.
I don't care for them or the royals. I'm a Republican. God save the Queen means nothing to me. Abolish it tomorrow as far as I'm concerned. I get all the nationalist arguments. I get all what it represents. I get actually, and I do agree that it would leave a massive void in our national psyche that would be very difficult or nigh impossible to replace. I'm just very indifferent to it all. And it's just being used again, isn't it? To incite a race row.
Yeah, everything's racist now because any criticism of Meghan is racist. I mean, I'm sorry, but I think she seems like an absolute narcissist who cannot handle any criticism, and married into a family, didn't realise what that would entail.
Yep.
And they didn't want any part of it. I mean, fair enough to them if they don't want to. I think, no one should have to be made to participate in royal duties if they don't want to, especially if you're not the heir to the throne. It feels like a waste of time. But then at the same time, you're using your title and your privilege to get an audience and to make money. You don't want that, so stop using it to your advantage. Simple as. You're lecturing about women's rights and equality and racism and the environment, all from your multi-million-dollar mansion in LA.
The timing of it.
Really?
The timing of it as well. I mean, read the room. We're in the middle of a massive global pandemic. People are, there are people who are really struggling, who have lost everything, businesses, livelihoods. There's people going insane, living in flats with the kids, homeschooling them, no space, no gardens.
Yes, but life is tough for them.
But and they're sat there.
They didn't
with a
get
face
the
like
right quinoa.
Yeah.
Grocery shopping this week, okay? There was no kale.
I'm not saying it hasn't been unpleasant. I'm sure it has, but cry me a fucking river for the royals, who have everything they ever want. And I'm supposed to care about that. I'm falling asleep talking about it.
Okay, let's stop before you start snoring on air.
So, What else on Twitter? Let's have a look, see if we've got anything. So this is from Dave Watts. Should gay conversion therapy be banned, even for fully consenting adults? 2, is the campaign being hijacked by trans activists to try ban psychiatric treatment for children requesting to transition that isn't affirmative? Gay conversion therapy is a complete bunk pseudoscience. It doesn't work. It's always underpinned by religious conservatism. I don't think it should be funded on the NHS, just as I don't think homeopathy should. And they're not anymore, luckily. Good gay conversion therapy I'm referring to as well. However, that does leave a very tricky area where you have to question the idea of private practices, and it depends what it involves, doesn't it? It depends what it involves. There's lots of things you can pay for that are either ineffective or potentially harmful, yet society has decided as a consenting adult you're able to. Acupuncture, for a start, Reiki practitioners, all nonsense, and can actually, chiropractors can actually cause more trouble than it's worth. Yet, as a liberal society, we say, well, you do so at your own risks. Where are you on gay conversion therapy, Iram?
Do you know, it's a really tricky one, because I think a lot of it's going to be absolute bullshit, isn't it? But then if someone wants to actually do it, can you really, really stop them? And then what happens if you ban it? Does it just drive it all underground?
Yeah. I mean, it depends. It depends what we're banning here. And how do you define gay conversion therapy? Is it a session where a preacher tries to talk you out of the, pray the gay away? Is that gay conversion? Or are we talking about actual attempts at flooding techniques and substances? I remember Dr. Christian Jessen, who came on the podcast to talk about it, did a brilliant documentary called Cure Me, I'm Gay, where he went around to look at a lot of these, and some of them are absolutely horrendous. What they try and encourage you to do in order to get over your homosexual malady. So it depends if it's something that's presents a clear and present threat to human life, in a sense, or well-being, then yeah, that should be banned, as any other practice that is similar would. But it's difficult, isn't it, when you consider you can get a baby circumcised and everyone goes, Mazel Tov, and then you can't have somebody attempted to be convinced out of being gay. So I think we need to find a standard and settle on it there.
Opened a can of worms
and just to reiterate, I'm in favour of none of those things, and if you want me to sign a piece of paper to say we shouldn't do them, I will. But I just think it's funny that you can literally chop bits off babies, but it's beyond the pale to try and convince someone they're not gay.
I mean, a lot of these therapies, they clearly don't work for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But I suppose if you're right, if an adult is going to them, and as long as there's nothing harmful, like physically harmful going on.
Yeah, a lot of it is psychotherapy, really. So I'm against it. I would oppose people doing that. I'll have some harsh words to say to any organisation and or person who's engaging in that. Should it be illegal? I don't know. That's a tough one for me. I think that you've always got to strike that balance between liberal freedoms and legality, and I always tend to side on the liberal freedoms, warts and all. I'd rather take the risk. What
fascist?
Yeah, exactly. I'd rather take the risk of making a mistake than having the state decide for me. But I appreciate it's a balancing act, and people might be surprised that I don't want to outlaw gay conversion therapy, but it all comes down to what it involves. There's some people, if it's psychotherapy, probably not. If it's shock treatment, yes, ban it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, if it's physically harmful, yes.
Ban it. I think we've nailed it. I think I'm glad that we missed February, because I don't think this would have been as good.
Yeah, fuck February. No wonder it's only 28 days.
If you can cure someone of being gay, surely the process can work the other way around.
Oh, so you can make them gay.
I would say people who are advocates of gay conversion therapy should volunteer to be made gay and then have it reversed back, just so they can say, look, see, I like cock.
It worked.
I'm heading back in the clinic tomorrow and getting it reversed.
Oh my God, that's absolutely hilarious. How would you make someone gay?
How would you make someone gay? I reckon
make them watch an interior design program.
Yeah, it'd be a combination of your laser eye clamp and The Greatest Showman on loop, Clockwork Orange style. And on that note, it's been a pleasure, Iram.
It has indeed.
Hopefully, we might even get to see each other at some point this year. Boris pulls his finger out.
OMG.
In person. Like,
you might have to change out of your sweatpants.
I know. Are you worried that you might have forgot how to person? I'm worried that I might not know how to person anymore. I might just, all my social cues and norms have just gone. Might, come in rolling back.
I don't think you really ever had it.
That's true. Yeah, actually, normal service is resumed. It's like, Stephen's here again. Yep. All right, Iram. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Ta-ra.
Thank you for listening to the Godless Spellchecker podcast. The podcast is a one-man operation, produced in my spare time away from my day job, and I love making it for you. If you enjoy what you hear, please consider lending some support. The show is entirely listener-supported. I don't sell anything, I don't run ads, and given the alternative and unpopular focus of my content, it's very unlikely to find a sponsor. So there are a number of ways you can support and chip in and help improve the show and give me more time to produce more content. You can become a patron supporter and pledge a monetary amount per month or per episode by visiting patreon.com/gspellchecker. If you can't lend monetary support right now, don't worry, there's other ways you can help the podcast too. You can share it on your various social media networks, or take a moment to leave a review wherever you listen to it. Your support is massively appreciated. Thank you. Think we've all learned something here today?